Your tomato plants are dying. Again. The third season in a row. And the bag of synthetic fertilizer you bought last March, the one that cost you $47, is still sitting in the garage with a quarter left because you followed the instructions and the plants still did not produce what the picture on the bag promised. You are not doing it wrong. The system you are using is doing what it was designed to do, which is sell you the next bag. A woman in Botetourt County, Virginia, named Eleanor Marsh, has grown barley, wheat, and tomatoes on the same 1.2-acre parcel for 31 years. She has not bought a bag of synthetic fertilizer since 1999. She pulls 1,200 pounds of vegetables from 4 raised beds and a half-acre field every season. Last year, her neighbor offered to buy her compost at $22 a cubic foot because the neighbor had heard what Eleanor's soil test results looked like. I spent 17 years on the wrong side of that math. Then I read the Book of Ruth, not the way I had read it before, not as theology, not as a kinsman-redeemer narrative, not as a love story between a Moabite widow and a Bethlehem landowner. I read it as a farming record, because that is what it also is. A 100-year-old field report from the barley harvest outside Bethlehem, written by people who understood something about soil that the entire modern fertilizer industry has spent 80 years telling you to forget. 6 practices hidden in plain sight, banned from modern farming books not because anyone sat down to ban them, but because the industry that replaced them needed you not to ask why the old way worked. Stay with me. There is a document I found in the USDA National Agricultural Library's historical collection 2 years ago, a farm journal from 1948, that ties everything Ruth described to a measurement that changes the meaning of every fertilizer receipt you have ever paid. I want you to earn it by hearing the rest first. Eleanor Marsh started with the edges. Her parcel in Botetourt County runs along the east face of a gentle ridge. The soil is a loam-clay mix, moderate drainage, slightly acidic. In 1999, when she stopped buying synthetic inputs, she had been reading Leviticus 19:9. It says, "When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your field right up to its edge." She had always read that as a charity instruction, leave the corners for the poor. She still believes it is that. But she started asking a second question. What does it do to the soil? She left a 12-foot strip on all 4 edges of her field, uncut. She did not mow it. She did not till it. She let the wild grasses and the volunteer plants grow. The dropped grain from her previous harvest seeded back into the strip naturally. By the 3rd season, the edge strips were different, denser, darker. The earthworm count in those strips, she tested with a shovel and a jar, was 3 times what she found in the center rows she was still cultivating. Ruth 2:2 records the gleaning practice directly. "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, in whose sight I shall find favor." The word translated as glean in Hebrew is lakat, to pick up what is dropped, to gather the fallen. Ruth 2:3 says she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. Then Ruth 2:15-16 records Boaz's instruction. He told his reapers to pull out from the bundles for her and leave it for her to glean. That is seed returned to the soil margins. The dropped grain, the fallen stalks, the uncut corners, every piece of organic matter that a fully efficient modern harvest removes was left at the edges, and the edges became the biological reservoir of the farm. Squeeze a handful of your garden soil right now. Hold it. Open your hand. If it crumbles in loose, dry particles, you have soil that drains too fast and holds almost no microbial structure. If it holds a shape but breaks along natural fracture lines when you press it, that is biological aggregate. Structure built by fungal hyphae and earthworm castings, not by purchased inputs. If it smells like a forest floor after rain, that is geosmin, a compound produced by actinomycete bacteria. It means the living layer is active. If your soil crumbles dry, the edge strips Eleanor leaves are the reason hers does not. USDA strip cropping research published in 2019 measured that unmanaged grass strips along cultivated field edges increase beneficial insect populations by 41% within 2 seasons. They reduce erosion by up to 60% on slope. They deposit an estimated 340 pounds of organic matter per linear acre annually through natural decomposition alone. Ruth's gleaning law preserved that edge biome across every farm in ancient Bethlehem for generations. Modern commodity agriculture eliminated the edges first, called them wasted space. The fertilizer bill went up the same decade. Now if you have only raised beds, or a strip garden beside your house, or 5 containers on a porch, stay with me. This principle scales down before it scales up. Eleanor's edge principle in a raised bed means leaving the outermost 4 inches unmanaged at the end of the season. Drop your bean pods there. Leave the dried tomato stems. Let the volunteer plants germinate in spring and then cut them at soil level without pulling the roots. The roots decompose in place. The soil under that 4-inch border builds faster than the center of your bed. I have measured this in my own 8 by 4 foot beds with a soil probe. The organic matter differential between the managed center and the unmanaged edge after 3 seasons is real and measurable with a $10 kit from your county extension office. Eleanor's second discovery came on a Tuesday in October of her 3rd year. She was walking her field in the early evening, the kind of October light that comes low across Virginia ridges and turns everything amber and quiet. And she noticed her barley stubble was still standing. She had meant to till it under the week before. She had not gotten to it. The stubble was dry, upright. It looked like a failure. She was embarrassed enough that she had not said anything about it at the Harvest Cooperative meeting earlier that week. But she was busy. She left it another 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, the morning dew fell and ran down the standing stalks into the root zone. The stubble dried again by noon. The following spring, when she turned that section, the soil under the standing stubble was darker and more friable than any section she had tilled immediately after harvest. The difference was not subtle. She could see it from 10 feet away. Ruth 2:7 describes the gleaning hours. She had been on her feet from early morning except for a short rest in the shelter. And Ruth 2:15-16 records that she gleaned among the standing sheaves. The barley in the Book of Ruth was not cut and immediately stored. It stood in the field. The Iron Age harvest in the Judean hill country involved cutting, bundling, and leaving sheaves to stand and cure, sometimes for days, before the threshing floor. The grain dried on the stalk. Fungal disease pressure dropped. The chaff and the straw dried with the grain. Eleanor was doing the 3,100-year-old thing by accident. She named it herself. I forgot to clean it up, and the field thanked me. What the standing stubble does is preserve the root mat. Modern combine harvesting cuts stalks at 6 to 8 inches and immediately turns the field. The root mat is shredded. The mycorrhizal network, the underground supply chain the roots built over the season, is severed. You pay to re-establish it next year. A 2017 Cornell study on post-harvest root mat preservation found that fields where stubble was left standing for 14 days before tillage retained 32% more mycorrhizal inoculum in the top 6 inches of soil compared to fields turned immediately. Eleanor's accidental 2-week delay gave her roots time to pass their carbon stores back into the soil food web before they died. Eleanor told me about the third practice while standing at the north fence line on a May morning, looking down at her neighbor's field across the road. But first, the threshing floor. Ruth 3:2 says Boaz is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Ruth 3:7 says he ate and drank and went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. 2 details. The threshing happens at night, and Boaz sleeps at the end of the grain pile on an elevated surface. Ancient Levantine threshing floors were positioned on the highest available ground in a field system. Ridges, flat outcroppings, stone promontories. They were positioned specifically to catch the evening wind that flows down off the Judean hills after sunset. The grain was tossed into that wind. The chaff blew away, the heavy grain fell. But what this also did, incidentally and deliberately, is keep the grain entirely free of soil contact during sorting. When grain is threshed at ground level in wet conditions, soil fungal spores and pathogens transfer directly into the grain mass. When it is threshed on elevated stone in moving dry air, that transfer is mechanically prevented. The elevated threshing floor is a food safety protocol and a disease management protocol written into the fabric of how Bethlehem conducted its harvest. Modern grain storage losses to aflatoxin contamination run between 5 and 20% in humid climates, according to FAO data from 2021. Aflatoxin is a mycotoxin produced by Aspergillus molds that requires soil moisture contact and warm, still air to develop. Elevated stone threshing with evening cross ventilation are the exact counter conditions. The Book of Ruth specifies both location and timing. They knew what they were doing in 1100 BC. Eleanor built her drying area on the high end of her ridge parcel, 18 inches above the field, on a poured concrete pad. Her grandfather told her, "Grain dried on the high side always tests better for moisture and mold." She did not know she was re-implementing a Bethlehem Iron Age protocol. When I told her, she stood quietly for a moment and said, "Well, Grandpa didn't make things up." The fourth practice emerged not from Eleanor's active choices, but from the section of her parcel she ignores. We were walking her south corner on a gray November morning, a week after the last harvest was in. She gestured to a quarter-acre section that had nothing in it, just standing grass and dried stalks from a grain crop the previous year. She said, "It's resting. I just let it rest. My father did the same. Every few years a piece gets a break." Leviticus 25:2-7 formalized what Boaz's neighbors in Bethlehem were already practicing. "When you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 1 year in 7, the land rests. No planting, no tilling, no harvest taken." The word is Shabbat, the same word as the weekly Sabbath, not a metaphor, a direct agricultural instruction. Eleanor does not run a formal 7-year cycle. She rotates parcels informally. A section rests when it looks tired. She knows what tired soil looks like: pale, tight-crusted surface after rain, slow drainage, weak seedlings in the first 2 weeks. When a section shows all three, she leaves it. She mows it once in summer. She does not till it. In 14 months, she says, it comes back. The Rodale Institute has been running what they call the Farming Systems Trial since 1981, the longest-running comparison of organic and conventional cropping systems in North America. Their 2021 published data shows that fields under legume-based fallow rotation for 2-year periods increased soil organic matter by 0.4% per year on average. At current input prices, that organic matter increase is worth approximately $190 per acre annually in reduced fertilizer cost alone. Leviticus ran a 7-year cycle. USDA's own Natural Resources Conservation Service now recommends 4 to 6 year rotations for severely depleted soils to recover microbial biomass. The Bible was more aggressive about rest than the agency that oversees American soil. This matters, not because we need to be more religious about agronomy, because the instruction was correct. Now there was a moment with Eleanor that I mentioned would come, and this is it. I had been visiting her farm 4 times before she said the thing I needed to hear. We were standing at the north fence line, the stone fence her grandmother placed. Her neighbor's field was across the road, recently tilled, bare, the brown-gray of depleted ground. Her neighbor is a careful farmer. He tests his soil every spring. He follows the extension office recommendations precisely. He applies what the test recommends and gets a crop and applies again the following year. Eleanor watched his field for a moment and said, "Every year, the number he needs is a little higher. I haven't sent a sample in 11 years. I'm not saying his way is wrong. I'm saying mine costs me nothing, and the soil feeds itself." She said it without heat, the way someone says something they have thought about a long time and arrived at peace with. I have thought about that sentence for 2 years. The chemistry behind what she described is not complicated. Synthetic nitrogen application raises available nitrogen in the soil solution immediately. Plants uptake it fast. They grow fast. But synthetic nitrogen bypasses the mycorrhizal nitrogen cycle entirely. The plants stop trading carbon to the fungal network in exchange for mineralized nitrogen because they do not need to. The nitrogen is already in solution, available without cost. The fungal network, receiving no carbon payment, reduces activity. The soil food web contracts. Year over year, the biological substrate deteriorates while the chemical substrate is maintained artificially.
the soil becomes dependent on the next application. You are not growing food. You are maintaining a substrate in a state of managed decline. Everything I showed you today, the gleaning edges, the standing stubble, the elevated threshing, the fallow rest, is one piece of a larger system. The complete biblical harvest system covers water, soil, pests, rotation, storage, and seed saving. Every protocol traced to a verse, every claim verified by modern soil science. Under $51 to build, replaces more than $5,000 of modern garden engineering. 600 pounds of food from 4 raised beds is what the system is designed to deliver. $19 during the founder's launch. Link is in the description below. But stay right here, because the document I mentioned at the start, the one I have not shown you yet, changes the meaning of everything I just said. First, the 5th practice, and then the 6th, and then the document. Go push your finger 1 inch into the surface of your most used bed. Hold it there for 30 seconds. Pull it out slowly. Look at what comes with it. If you pull out a continuous thread of soil, attached, coated, slightly clumped on your fingertip, you have biological aggregate. The fungal network is intact. If your finger comes out clean, the soil is compacted and biological activity is low. You are growing in a substrate that is waiting for you to feed it again. Eleanor's soil sticks to your finger, every corner of her 1.2 acres. The 5th thing she practices came from Ruth chapter 4, the kinsman-redeemer narrative. Boaz redeems the parcel of land belonging to Elimelech, Naomi's deceased husband. Ruth 4:3-10 records the legal exchange at the city gate. The Hebrew word used for the act of buying back is geula, redemption, but also the legal restoration of something to the family lineage it belongs to. Eleanor's farm has been in her family for 4 generations. Her great-grandmother broke the ground. Her grandmother placed the stone fences. Her mother planted the apple trees. Eleanor has not changed where the apple trees are. Her mother chose that location for a reason Eleanor does not fully understand. She respects that. She plants around the trees. In the United States today, 39% of all farmland is leased, not owned. The farmer who leases ground for 10 years has no economic incentive to invest in practices whose benefit arrives in year 7. Synthetic NPK is the lease cycle solution. It produces now. The soil degrades over the lease. The next tenant inherits depleted ground, needs more input, spends more per bushel. The fertilizer company sells another bag. The kinsman-redeemer law kept land in family lineages. Multi-generational soil stewardship is not a spiritual concept. It is an economic structure with a measurable outcome. When the same family works the same ground for 3 or 4 generations, they make decisions about soil on a century-long investment horizon. They plant trees. They leave fences where their grandmother put them. They let the low corner rest because their father said it needed to. The fertility Eleanor pulls from that 1.2 acres now was built partly by choices her grandmother made in the 1950s. She is drawing on an investment she did not make, and she is making an investment her grandchildren will draw on in the 2050s. The Geula law created that continuity in Bethlehem 3,000 years ago. Modern lease agriculture broke it, not through malice, through incentive structure. The same soil degradation story, at scale. The 6th practice Eleanor did not tell me about for the first 3 visits. I only found out because I asked her directly what she planted first each year. She said, barley. And then she looked at me like she expected me to ask why. She plants barley on the south strip of her field every season. Wheat follows in the same strip 2 years later. She has grown this way for 19 years. Her wheat, planted after barley, needs less input and produces more consistently than wheat she has tried after fallow alone. Ruth 1:22 records the timing of the story's arrival in Bethlehem. They came at the beginning of the barley harvest. Ruth 2:23 closes the field season. She gleaned until the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest. The sequence is documented. Barley first, wheat after. In Iron Age Levant, this was not random. Barley matures in 6 to 8 weeks, is substantially less demanding of nitrogen than wheat, and is harvested by late spring. It leaves the field cleared for a rotation planting or a second crop. More importantly, It changes the soil microbiology in ways that protect the following wheat crop from specific fungal pathogens. The allelopathic effect of barley residue on take-all disease, caused by the pathogen Galeomyces graminis, was documented in a 2003 study by researchers at the USDA Agricultural Research Service Station in Pullman, Washington. Barley residue incorporated before wheat planting reduced take-all incidence by 28% compared to wheat following a bare fallow year. Eleanor has never had a significant fungal loss on her wheat. Then she said, "So I've been following Ruth's planting schedule and I didn't know it." She laughed. The kind of laugh that comes when something that was always true becomes visible. Eleanor's farm in late spring looks like it has been tended by someone who has a plan they are not fully explaining. The south strip of barley is green and dense. The middle rows have the established perennials she has managed for a decade. The north edge is an organized riot of volunteer growth, unmowed, 3 shades of green where her neighbor's field edge is a single monotone brown. The stone fence along the west side has been in the same place since 1961. The apple trees are where her mother put them in 1978. She walked me to the lower corner in the afternoon of my last visit, the fallow section, the resting ground. She stood there for a moment without saying anything, just looked at it, not at what was there, but at what was building below the surface, invisibly, slowly, the way soil builds when it is left alone to do what it was designed to do. Then she walked back toward the barn without turning around. Now I want to tell you about the document. 2 years. That is how long it took me to find this paper. In the USDA National Agricultural Library's historical periodical holdings, a collection of agricultural science journals spanning 1930 to 1960, there is a volume of the Journal of the American Society of Agronomy from 1948, volume 40. Inside that volume is an article compiled from the work of William A. Albrecht at the University of Missouri. Albrecht had been studying why fields under continuous synthetic nitrogen cultivation for 20 or more years were producing higher bushel counts but measurably lower mineral density per bushel. The title of the relevant section, More Crop Per Acre, Less Food Per Crop. Albrecht was not writing theology. He was writing agronomy. His finding was that synthetic nitrogen application feeds the plant while bypassing the mycorrhizal and bacterial networks the plant evolved over 10,000 years to cooperate with. The plant grows larger, the calories increase. The minerals, the calcium, the magnesium, the trace elements the plant would normally pull through fungal trade networks decline per calorie. The soil biology contracts year over year. Albrecht identified this pattern in 1948. The mechanism he named is the mechanism by which every single practice in the Book of Ruth preserves what synthetic nitrogen destroys. The gleaning edges maintain the edge biology reservoir. The standing stubble preserves the mycorrhizal inoculum before tillage. The elevated threshing floor prevents fungal contamination. The Sabbath fallow restores microbial biomass. The family parcel law sustains the multi-generational investment horizon. The barley before wheat sequence limits pathogen load. Albrecht knew the mechanism. Ruth knew the practice. They arrived at the same farm 3,000 years apart. The piece Albrecht could not have known, and this is the part I want to be honest about, is whether the ancient farmers of Bethlehem knew the biology behind what they did. They may not have. Whether they understood the mycorrhizal mechanism or the allelopathic chemistry is genuinely unknown. What is not unknown is that the practices worked. Ruth 2:23 records a harvest. Eleanor Marsh has records of 31 seasons of harvest on the same ground. There are 3 places where this breaks down, and Eleanor told me all 3. The edge strips only work if you can tolerate the visual disorder. 3 of her neighbors have asked her to mow them. She has declined. You can approximate it with a deliberately unmowed 6-foot strip inside your fence line. That is enough to begin building differential biology. The standing stubble creates a management gap. If your season runs September to March and you have winter crops going in immediately, cut at soil level, leave the root mat in place, and cover the cut stems with 2 inches of dried wood chips. The mycorrhizal preservation is partial, not complete, but measurable. The barley before wheat rotation requires discipline to leave a section in transition. Eleanor loses one productive season on whatever strip is moving through the cycle. She plans for it. She does not mourn it. The instruction in Ruth was built for people who could think in seasons, not in weeks. The bias of modern agriculture is toward the measurable quarterly result. Everything Ruth records is oriented toward the measurable generational result. The patience is the shortcut. It just does not feel like one in year 3. In the next hour, walk your perimeter. Look at your outermost edge. Ask whether you are managing it or managing it away. Tonight, add up what you have spent on soil inputs in the last 3 seasons. Hold that number. Tomorrow morning, dig 4 inches at the center of your most used bed and 4 inches at the edge. Compare what comes up on the shovel. This week, designate one section of your garden to stop receiving any inputs this season. Do not till it. Do not fertilize it. Leave it. The one thing not to do. Do not apply synthetic nitrogen to ground you. Are planning to transition to an edge or fallow system. It will inhibit the biological activity you are trying to restore for at least 2 seasons. Tell me in the comments, what are you using for path covering right now? Bare soil, cardboard, black plastic, bark mulch. Drop your current setup below. I read every comment. We just talked about burying olive wood and bronze to build living soil, the lost Genesis method. Today we went a few centuries later into the Book of Ruth, the field in Bethlehem, the barley harvest, the threshing floor at night under the Judean wind. A landowner named Boaz, who understood something about field edges and standing grain and family land that we have been spending money to replace for 80 years. Eleanor Marsh is walking that field in Botetourt County right now, or close to it. The stone fence is where her grandmother put it. The edge strips are growing. The south strip has barley coming up. Next time we step into a Coptic monastery garden where pests never came near. And the one cedar stick method scribes removed from Scripture. The ground was always teaching. We just stopped listening.